everyone, it's Dave from Fit and Healthy Forever. I wanted to do a video today on carbohydrates and fats, the two main fuel sources that your body uses. We'll start with carbohydrates first. Carbohydrates is a nutritional category for sugars or molecules that your body breaks down into sugars to be used as energy for exercise, for your daily tasks, for work or whatever it may be. We have simple and we have complex carbs. Now, simple carbs are the sort of sugars that go into your system really quick, give you a burst of energy and then you crash. Your complex carbs are more your starchy ones that give you a sustained release of energy, which is more constant. So with that in mind, we have what's called a glycemic index table. You can find this anywhere online and it's based on 0 to 100. 100 being for sugar. So the higher the number, the quicker the food source gets into your system, gives you a quick spike of energy and then a crash. So you need to be looking at foods that are below 55, such as your oatmeal, yams, sweet potatoes, brown rice, things like that. They give you a constant energy source, not a high and then a low. So when you eat a carb meal, your blood sugar rises and your carbs then are converted into glucose to be used as energy. The body will choose how it uses those, whether it be exercise or your daily chores. Anything over and above what you use, insulin is released and it stores the rest as fat, because insulin actually is the fat storage hormone. What it does is it regulates your blood sugar levels, and anything over and above what you're going to use, it will put into storage. That is a fact. So people who think that eating loads of carbs is the way to go, it isn't. I think, in my belief, that's what's making the nation more obese than ever. So, bearing that in mind, when it's shuttled into fat storage, this is when people say fat makes you fat. It's not, it's the carbohydrates that are shuttled in there. You need fats in your diet, which I'll go on to shortly after this exit of the video. Whether carbs are in the forms of cakes or biscuits or whole grain bread or whole grain rice, sugar is sugar. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what source you're taking in, your body will still break them down into sugars to use for energy. Carbohydrates have no other use in the body whatsoever. They only are to be used as a fuel source. So people that say you need carbs in your diet, you don't necessarily need them. They're a fuel source, period. They don't not used for anything else. Whereas fats is a different story, which I'll go on to shortly. So when you're looking at the food pyramid, this was released, I've got a copy of it here. This was released, the first one I know of was something around 83, 84. Then it was revised in 93, and then it was revised again in 2003, something along them lines. I haven't seen one since 2003, but this is recommending that you take in 6 to 11 servings of bread, rice, pasta, cereals, that type of carbohydrate per day. Then it's saying to take in 3 to 5 servings of vegetables a day, which are a fibrous carbohydrate. Still a carbohydrate, but they bypass the normal intestinal tract and they clean everything out. They're not digested as such. Then it says 2 to 4 servings of fruit a day. Fruits are okay, they can be a slow carbohydrate depending on what you're eating. If it's apples, pears, something along them lines, they're slow release. There's things like blueberries, strawberries that are probably not. You need to look on the glycemic index. You have below 55, which is your slow release on the index, then you have 55 to 70, which is medium release, and anything over 70 is a quick release. So just have a look at that online. Then it's saying 2 to 3 servings a day of meat, fish, poultry, eggs, nuts and dry beans. That's fine, that's okay. Right at the top it says fats, oils and sweets to be used sparingly. Now fats and oils you need, to me, more than carbohydrates. I'll go through those in a minute when we move on to the next section. But that table needs flipping on its head. It's the carbohydrates we don't need in great deals. If you're the sort of person who's got a sit-down job in an office and you don't go to the gym, you're not going to need a minimum of, it's saying there, 10 or 11 servings of carbohydrates of some sort per day. You just wouldn't use those up. And that's why your body is then storing them as fat, because there's nowhere else for them to go. If they're not used as energy, they don't serve any other purpose. So low GI food, something like oatmeal, stone ground, wholemeal bread, sweet potatoes, yams, some fruits, vegetables. The things to steer clear of is most cereals, white bread, white rice, white pasta, cakes, biscuits, things like that you don't necessarily need. Okay? So if you look at something like a tin of Heinz beans for an example, it'll say something along the lines of, on the food label, if you read the food labels, you need to learn to read these, it will say total carbohydrates is something around 30 grams, of which 9 are sugars. So a third of that is sugar. That's probably borderline. What you would need is probably lower than that if you can. So they're not necessarily as healthy as you think. They have got some fibre in them, which helps. Fibre and fats will help to slow down digestion, even of quick digesting sugars. So it's not all bad. You need to look at what's on the food label before you go with the food. So learn to read your food labels, have a look at the glycemic index, and be very careful how you monitor your carbohydrates. Okay, so now we move on to fats. Okay, so now we move on to fats. This is the other source that your body can use as a fuel source in the absence of carbohydrate. But I'll cover that in another video. So fats. When you ingest fats, the body can turn them into essential fatty acids to be used, like your omega-3s, your omega-6s. Now, they're called essential because your body can't make them. They have to be ingested, and then your body can turn them into what it wants and use them. So fat helps the body absorb your fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E. These can't be absorbed properly without the use of fat, so you need fats in your diet. Now, fats also support cell growth and they protect your organs, so again, you need them for that. They also help with hormone production as well. So low-fat diets were introduced in the USA in around 1977, and then in the UK by about 1983. And that was in the absence of supporting evidence at the time. So somebody had come up with this idea that low-fat diet is the way to go, that's what's making people fat, and we've followed it ever since. Since then, the USA and the UK are more obese now than they've ever been. In fact, in 2014, 62% of adults in the UK were classified as overweight. 20 years earlier than that, 1994, it was only 53%. And 24.8% in the UK are classed as obese. Now, if we carry on eating carbohydrates the way we do, that's going to get worse. I'm pretty sure of that. So don't be afraid of fats. Fats, to me, are better in your diet than carbohydrates are. But you need to monitor how many you're taking in. You need to use them properly. The things to avoid are what we call trans fats and hydrogenated fats, because they've been genetically modified to help with taste in food and to help with shelf life. So they need to be avoided at all costs. There was a publication in the Harvard Medical Journal that said that not enough evidence was available to conclude that saturated fats increased the risk of heart disease or cardiovascular disease. Now this goes against what we're always being told. We're always being told that if you eat too many fats, it'll clog your arteries, it'll cause coronary heart disease, cardiovascular disease. There's no supporting evidence. The evidence doesn't point to that. It points to other things as well as that. So if you're doing other things as well as that, then yes, maybe. So there's also a school of thought that think if you eat more fats in the early part of the day, it will help to reduce the cravings for carbs later in the day, because they'll make you feel fuller for longer and they satiate you more. So again, fats essential for optimising hormone production, and they make you feel fuller for longer. Steer clear of things like corn oil, soybean oil and canola oil. Now, these again used for shelf life and taste mainly. Canola oil was actually classified as a pesticide in the USA and is toxic for humans to inhale. So you certainly don't want to be putting that in your body. Coconut oil is one of the new so-called superfoods. This has very, very many benefits, too many to go into in this. I'll do a separate video on that. But coconut water is almost identical to blood plasma. In fact, in World War II, it was said that it was used for emergency blood transfusions because it was the nearest thing we got to using blood. Also, the fatty acid profile of coconut oil is almost identical to that of breast milk. So that gives you an idea of how beneficial it is to your health. Other sources of good fats are walnuts, macadamia nuts, fish oils, eggs, salmon, sardines, avocados, to name a few. Make sure you get plenty of those in your diet. They're not expensive, they're quite easy to take in as snacks. They don't take any preparation. Boiled eggs, tin of sardines, walnuts, macadamia nuts, they're easy to carry around, so you can get them in your diet quite easily. Don't be put off by the myth of eating too many eggs. I take in at least 3 eggs a day with no detrimental benefit to my health. So use them sparingly, but don't be afraid of them. So if you remember then, if you take anything from this, you don't need as many carbohydrates in your diet as you think you do. We've all been brought up to think that that was the way forward. Get your carbohydrates in, use them as fuel. If you're not a very active person, you do not need as many as you think you need. You need to monitor that as an individual to see how many you need depending on your job and your activity levels. Fats, again, monitor, but you do need a lot more than you think you do. Don't avoid them because you need them for certain things that happen in your body. So with that in mind, thanks for listening in. Stay fit and healthy forever, and I'll see you in the next video.